Hello, Kevin.
Hey Greg, my name's Kevin Reinhardt. I practice mostly sculpture and then I also have painting stuff that I do. So when I'm doing sculpture, I like working in wood, but I also think I'm pretty open to experimenting with whatever materials.
So what do you have to do to these guys?
These are on their final sand. So I go through and I sand them down, and then the glasses get painted black and the hair gets stained. I've been using like a gel stain
Oh, okay.
an oil-based gel stain that I quite like because it dries with a slight sheen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of reflective, like hair is reflective, I think.
Cool.
This is sort of the most tedious part of all the sculpting stuff. Sanding takes the longest. The kicker is like I can't really figure out a substitute to like getting in with, you know, a balled up piece of sandpaper for these small details. I sort of have I have all the rotary tools and stuff, but it's so hard with wood to not leave traces of the machine. Yeah.
Oh. What's the wood you're working on?
This is birch, which isn't my usual carving wood, but I chose this wood because there are elements that I tapped and I'm gonna screw a machine screw into. So I purposely chose a hard wood, a hard dense wood that I knew would hold threads. I also chose it for its coloring. Because of the scale of these, I was able to make them pretty easily out of a single piece of wood. So because there are no seams, I'm leaving the skin sort of raw wood. So his complexion is the color of the birch. I think that's one of the luxuries of fine art, is that you can sort of be aggressive and delicate, you know, aggressively delicate about your finishing technique because they're treated preciously. This project's going to come out as an edition of 3, and these are portrayals of the jazz pianist Bill Evans. Bill Evans, one of the things that I love about Bill Evans, who these are based on, is that he did this series of albums called Conversations with Myself. And it was him recording 3 separate tracks on the piano and then playing them over top of each other to make the songs on that album. And since he performed every track, I thought that the title was sort of, in a literal way, really nice. So whenever I work, I like to work in 3s, but especially whenever I work on things concerning Bill Evans, I sort of find it necessary to work in 3s because I love that album so much that I want things to reference that. There are like 3-dimensional elements to my paintings that sort of feel closer to sculpture than discipline painting.
Is this a study?
That's a study, yeah. A lot of the blind paintings start as studies like that, at that scale, to test sort of color, and this one was looking into translucency. I think when considering precision while I work, I sort of try and be as careful as possible, but I don't necessarily want to be a slave to the craft, if that makes sense.
All the way.
So I think I'm conscious and careful while I'm working, but I'm not. I think that like on that painting, there are areas that the paint sort of crept through in places that it's maybe not supposed to be, and I let that happen to a degree. I'll plan out some things. Like for this one, I would plan out where that dense strip is going to be approximately. So I sort of have a general idea of where things are going to go, and then I always try and leave room to adjust the composition as I'm making it, because I think that sort of is the best way to work with these things. Yeah. So these paintings I've been making for a little while, and they all reference specific architectural projects. I find a precedent project that I'm interested in, and I research it, and then I pull from scaled drawings of the project, the dimensions of the windows, the various windows of the building, and that then becomes the dimensions of the painting. So all of these blind paintings that I make directly reference in dimension and in concept usually a specific project that I'm researching.
Crazy. That's really heady. What's up with the lead?
And then the lead suit it's an origami folded lead sheet with paper making the shirt and the tie. It's just sort of like a study into dimensionality, I think.
Is this its placement?
This is its placement, yeah. It sits kind of slouched on the floor, propped up. It's supposed to be 1-to-1 scale with a real suit. I saw people working with lead in the building industry as a waterproofing material, and it seems like it was such an attractive material for its malleability and its weight, because I think that it's literally heavy, but because it's literally heavy, it feels heavy.
It looks heavy.
It looks heavy, yeah.
That's cool. You have a lot of, it's not processed. You have a lot of meaning behind your stuff. Talk about what
The bust.
the
Yeah.
bust.
So that was a bust portrayal of a Japanese woman named Sada Abe, who sort of lived this treacherous love life, and so much so that she became like lore and legend, and a movie was made. And I saw the movie, and it's called In the Realm of the Senses, and it's like a wild, tragic love story, kind of focused around her. I saw that movie, and it had very compelling imagery in it. I sort of drew from that imagery in the representation of her.
The story of the knife.
The story of the knife is that she used it to, well, I don't want to spoil it. It's a prop, yeah. But she used it to ultimate effect, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the literal translation of the movie in Japanese is "Love is a bullfight," which I thought was a beautiful title.
All right, see you later. I like these. You know, you have a sense of architecturalness about your art. Obviously,
Yeah.
is that a bent of yours?
Well, I went to school for architecture, so technically my education is in more architecture than art. It creeps into my practice sort of without trying. I think a lot of my interests sort of straddle design and architecture and fine art.
Well, your sculpture, it's a form of telling the story.
I think a lot of the work for me is study into ideas, or study into like compositions. So I think when I'm like the most invested and lost in my work, it's because it's a study of something that I find interesting, which I think is what the busts are about, what the windows are about. I think about things a lot before I do them. I don't really sketch stuff. You know, I sort of think about it and then I try and make it, and I find that it's more worthwhile for me to try and make something and have it not turn out the way I want it to and then start over than it is to like try and plan out in sketch form exactly how it's going to go. So I think that's a big part of my process, is sort of making stuff and then remaking it. Sort of comparing the two, the first iteration, the second iteration. Whenever I can, I like to work in threes, because I feel like when you make three of something, you sort of, it's real easy to tell which one's the best.
Did you forget your pants?
Yeah.
It does have a beautiful fabric quality.
It's a material that really like requires you to manhandle it.
Fashion design and architecture have similar foldovers. They overlap.
Yeah, definitely. I've been working on a sewing project. There's so much design and architecture DNA in the patterns that I'm using to make the like clothes that I'm sewing. It sort of seems like a one-to-one. Like the patterns exist in the same way that drawings of a building exist.
Yeah, you definitely have full groups of work in the blinds, your architectural perspectives, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that for a second, like these and that piece, this one.
Yeah, these three works, I think, in a very literal sense, build from this essay that I read by an architect named John Heyday. He wrote this nice little essay about the different degrees in which dimensionality is represented in drawing, right? Like within architecture, that's sort of a big ongoing topic, is the representation of something 3 dimensions and 2 dimensions. And in the essay, he sort of breaks down how effective he thinks 2-dimensional things are, and he puts like percentages to it. So he says like, and I don't remember the exact figures, but it's like a technical 2-dimensional plan is like 50% effective at communicating space. A 2-point perspectival drawing is like 75% effective, and then if you walk through and film a space, that then gets you up to maybe 90% effective. But I think one of the things about the essay that I liked is that you never get to 100% effectiveness, communicating a 3-dimensional space in 2 dimensions. So it sort of made me think about the opposite, communicating 2 dimensions with a 3-dimensional object. So a lot of these projects, like the door and that stool and even the jacket to a degree, I almost think the jacket does it most successfully, are sort of trying to be ambitious in the same way that a drawing, like the way that a drawing tries to be 3-dimensional, I want these 3-dimensional things to try and be 2-dimensional.
That's a really, really well put way of telling it. Talking about galleries, talking about how you got your gallery. Did you get it because you have a master's degree in?
Well, I don't. I have a bachelor's degree, but I think I sort of made friends. I found people that I really liked and who were already in the art world. I was sort of around. I was just around them, so I'd go to openings. I'd sort of do studio visits with them. I applied to a lot of stuff, and I think it was just luck. you know, unfortunately. I think it's a matter of luck, and I think people who work hard get lucky maybe more often than people that don't, but I don't think it's not an exact science. It's just sort of finding your...
You don't consider the caliber of work or what you're doing.
Well, I don't know, because
where you're at with it, because you're full on. You're a full on artist that you're doing it. You know, it's not like you're just trying to piddle around. You're doing it. You're selling it. You're selling work. You have work going up.
Yeah, I mean, I think you take
work
it...
that's a long time. You have long tail work. You have
Yeah.
You have shows that are coming up.
I do think it's important to not place too much value into that, because I don't think, you know, I think it's a dangerous thing to value your work based on the reception that it gets in galleries and from collectors and stuff, because I don't think you end up chasing something that isn't catchable. It's much more worthwhile to sort of figure out what you want to do and then just hope that people are attracted to it. Art in itself is unstructured, and the art world sort of by design, right? And the art world is similar, you know. They buy for reputation, yeah. They buy prospectively, so
yeah.
I don't think it's too, yeah. I think it's the job of the artist to figure that stuff out, or to play the game too much. Because I think if you play the game,
not to play it.
Not to play it.
Correct.
Yeah. Before I was doing art full time, I was still making art on the weekends. So I sort of look at it like that. Like, I think right now I'm able to afford to make art full time. And if someday things change and I'm not, I'll still make art. I just won't be able to make it quite as like furiously as I am right now. It doesn't mean that I'm not making art anymore, you know? I would still have projects that I'd want to do, and I'd still sort of be thinking about them frequently. And, you know, I think that yeah. Making studies. I think that's still an authentic experience, you know?
Mm-hmm. That is the experience.
Yeah. It sort of comes and goes, and, you know. Did you get the ceramic flower? This? It's like an oil. Yeah, I call them ceramic paintings. They're made out of fired clay. And then you get real tight. I imprinted canvas texture on them. So I had a bunch that sort of began life as studies of form and shadow and light. So they wouldn't get paintings on them. I would make them and do subtle variations to the form of the thing so that shadows were cast differently across them. And from that body of work, I was sort of left with these ones that ended up not quite making the cut for that series, but still seemed like worth working on more. So I painted different types of flowers on all of them. Sort of it's a nice painting surface because it looks like canvas, but because it's so hard and rough, it wore the paintbrushes down as I was painting them. So I would sort of watch the paintbrush disappear as I painted these flowers onto the ceramic canvases. Let's see, I have one more that I could take out. I sort of refined the attachment method, and this one was.
Is that your signature?
That's my, yeah. The KR is my signature on ceramic stuff, and then my signature on paintings is like usually the kind of wandering text.
Little child.
Yeah, like a child.